Our next speaker is Shawn Graham, a friend. Shawn is an executive at Xerox. He is one of our founding board members for the Equity Project Alliance, the heart of the Story Slam. He brought this here from a very successful Story Slam over in Fairhope. So please welcome Shawn, traumatized by sixth grade history, Graham.
Can you hear me? All right. Okay. My story is about traumatization in sixth grade history. If you've seen the movie American History X, I call this like Alabama History X, okay? And so I was born and raised, I'm a fifth generation kid out of Fairhope, Alabama. Fairhope is in Baldwin County, for those of you who don't know. It is thank you. It is a predominantly white town now, but growing up, it was just us. It was black people. In fact, we founded the city, but people just don't know that because we were there before it was named Fairhope, okay? But the beauty of that time is there was this property in the 1800s. As you know, there wasn't an opportunity for education for black people. During this time, Reconstruction. Well, our family, there's about 4 or 5 families came together, put about 14 acres of land and built the first school. And that school was like a community for us. My mom went there, my grandmother went there. It was an extension of family, but it was 100% black. So they were only used to and accustomed to being around other black people. There wasn't any integration at this time, right? So that property represented so much for my family, our community, and unfortunately, in the 1950s, after Brown versus Board of Education, some guys came and burned down the property. And so that didn't stop us. We ended up coming together and with actually a few white people as well in the 1940s and 50s and 60s, and then built a bigger facility with more buildings. Some of the trauma kind of comes after in 1971, mostly for my mom at this point, when we were going through integration. And so integration is looked upon by a lot of people as a great thing. And I think in some cases, in some ways it may be, but for our community, when we had our black school with black teachers, and it was us and the way we were educated, right? And the principle, everyone looked like us. So there was this level of trust in community, right? Like you can trust what's being told to you. When 71, integration happened and then everything split up. So that school, which was like a thriving, bustling component of the black community, was sort of ostracized, ironically kind of thrown into the Alabama school system, which I think there should be maybe a law against that, right? A private school that suddenly, okay, integration happened, we're gonna take your school and we're gonna put it in an Alabama Board of Education school system. And it became a public school, and then it became sort of a little bit run down. But what happened after that integration, there was fights. There were people that are now having to get along with each other, right? Now you're in high school, you're intermingling and mixing, and the white people didn't want us there, and we didn't want to be there. I don't think they knew that part. We didn't want to be there either. We were doing quite fine on our own, right? But that's the traumatization of a community that's being forced to come together when it doesn't feel comfortable, and when people are fighting and people are not getting along, and you don't know who you can trust because the principal is looking at you differently because you're new. And why are you here? And this is our land, right? This is our land. It's the way it comes across. Fast forward a few years later, where that property is dilapidated, left behind, drugs infested, a place in crime and situations that happen across the street. You see police there all the time, windows busted out. It used to be like a place that was called home, and a lot of those African American people that are my family members and other family members and relatives are still there. A lot of the older community, they're still there. And they just would hope and see that that property would be restored some way. In the 6th grade, I was at that school. It was the Fairhope Intermediate School. We had history class there. And I don't know if you've ever been in history class when we're talking about, American history. We somehow get to the Civil Rights Movement. But before that, we get to the Civil War. And I remember being in class. I was one of probably 2 or 3 black people, and the teacher talked about the Civil War. And I felt so embarrassed and shamed because the way they presented black people. You gotta remember, at that same school, I looked at black people as a positive. We weren't slaves, right? We had our own thing. But the way it was demonstrated in that class made me feel such shame. And the way people laughed and looked at me, it was traumatizing. From then, I looked at white people differently because it looked at me as it was something wrong with my blackness. You didn't understand it, you were afraid of it. It was all slaved, right? It was, this is our land, not yours. Why are you? We own you. And the way they talked about it in that class just made me feel shame. A few years after that, there was this white older guy that came upon our family. We had a flat tire. This was on Section Street. And older guy, I'm looking at this guy walk up to us. I was really worried and concerned. Well, this man actually helped us and bought my parents a car. I've never seen a white person do anything that awesome. In fact, I was like, can I just be broken down one day? Is that gonna happen? But out of the kindness of his own heart, he bought us a new car because our car was broken down. And from then, that really changed my perspective. Like, hey, there's actually good white people. You can't just cast everything as one group. Because I lost my confidence when I was teased in school, and I was like, I don't think there are really good-hearted people until then. That gift to my family allowed me to look at the world differently. Now on that property, under an organization called Hope Community, we've restored that property. We've had 300 blacks and whites come together to restore that project. We are doing renovation. We're doing a food farm. We do things like Story Slam and other things. But that happened after the trauma, after the healing of one person, y'all, just one man getting out of his car, blessing us that day, changed the entire trajectory of my life. And then I've been able to impact so many people after that.
Yeah. So thank you all for being here. We know that the Equity Project Alliance is about more than sharing stories. Though sharing stories is incredibly important. And I think Shawn said it well when he says, if you don't open the book, in other words, if you don't get to know the person, how do you know who they be? And as we think about this African word that we've used a lot in industry and now have been talking about that in a listening circle that we're in, there's a group of us who are reading a book called The Crucible of Racism. And we've been having some very deep conversations. One of the things we talked about was Ubuntu, and that is the idea that I see you. And I think too many times that we walk around and we're really not seen. And in fact, often we are dismissed, seen as unimportant, as if you really don't matter. Well, I want you to know the EPA, with the EPA, you matter. The goal of the Equity Project Alliance is to ally ourselves with like-minded folks, and some non-like-minded folks, because we believe in the power of change. We believe that when we come together and get to know each other, magic can happen.